Hello and welcome back to Damage Reports. This is episode 2, where we watch Star Trek Lower Decks and give reviews of it and just talk about Star Trek in the 21st century. I am your co-host, James, and I am a curmudgeon Star Trek fan. And with me always is Mike.
How are we doing, Mike? I'm Michael. We're doing good, and I'm so glad we decided to have that subtitle talking about Star Trek in the 21st century, because there is not a lot to talk about this week for this second episode of Lower Decks.
The second, we just both watched the second episode of Lower Decks. And again, I am really invested in that B plot. I'm kind of thinking that'll be my out on this show, because halfway through the A plot, I was like, why are we watching these characters? Why are we watching these characters? It was really frustrating to a certain end. And then we cut back to the B plot, and I thought that was more Star Trek-y. So before we go any further, we're gonna give the spoilers alert. So cue spoilers alert, because we're just gonna jump into it talking. All right. First reaction, Mike.
Let me ask you, do you use the special effect for the red alert, or do you use the special effect for the shuttle bay doors opening? Do you or do you use the...
So I've been doing the red alert.
Anyways, but as James said, Lower Decks episode 2, spoilers.
Yeah, we got our spoilers. Mike, first impressions of episode 2.
Hey, it's not terrible.
All right.
And again, I'm going to say this for everybody out there. Perhaps this cartoon is not for these 40-year-old men.
Yeah. So absolutely. Lieutenant Namor, I still can't say it. Mariner, something like that. Mariner. I was thinking she might be the first cartoon character in a long time that I could imagine myself, holding underwater till she couldn't breathe anymore. So I had like violent imagery with just like everything she kept doing. I was just like, why am I watching this character? And then they doubled down and they made the goofy guy, the goof character, they made him even more obnoxious. Like, I was like, oh my God, that's one way to bring Namor's status up, is if you make the other character so unbearably obnoxious, then her status did rise. But I'm watching.
It's healthy too. I wanna talk to you about how often you think of drowning animated characters versus just not watching that show.
No, there's me and my friends talk about it every now and again. My wife is
it's more than you.
More than a couple times a year. Okay. My wife has explained to me that I am a very passive aggressive sociopath, which is okay in most of society. Like, you can, so long as you're not a sociopath that's getting in everybody's face, you can just sit at home and go like, man, I'd really like to torture people. But so long as you don't act on those impulses, it's okay. Yeah.
It's funny to me that in the last 3 conversations that we've had on Zoom, I've not seen your wife at all. And you're talking about how horrible of a sociopath you are, and you can stay at home and torture things. And every time like we talk, it's like, say hi to Jen for me, and you're just like, hey, Mike says hi, and it's just like,
yeah,
it's like
just pan over to the Norman Bates mother, just sitting there.
For people that haven't watched this episode yet, which I don't know why you're not listening to, but for those of you that just like listening to us, so the story of this episode, if there is one, is that the nerdy ensign. I will say that I hate the format that we have, because we don't really have like a format on this yet. So I want to give the story, and then I'll tell you what I did like and dislike about it.
Okay.
The 2 main characters, the 2 command ensigns, are assigned to escort this Klingon general to a planet. And in the process of, the Klingon general gets drunk and steals their shuttlecraft, so they have to walk from one side of the planet to the other to make sure that he got to his little rendezvous. And their personality conflicts come into conflict again. Well, up on the ship, the cyborg character, who I love, Rutherford, has maybe misread a cue from the new Ensign Tendi, where she's like, I wanted to see this pulsar with you. And he's like, oh, but I have to work. And he's like, but maybe I don't have to work if I transfer into a new department. And she's like, you do that for me? So he transfers first to command and has like funny situations there, and then decides maybe instead I'll go into secure or sick bay, has funny situations there, then goes into security, has funny situations there, and then decides, you know what, I'm an engineer true and true. And she's like, that's cool. And then they had that will they won't they, where she's like, were you gonna transfer out just for me? And he's like, no. So I mean, obviously we all see where that's going, but it was cute.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, you find out that basically Mariner, the misfit daughter of the captain who has seen some shit throughout Starfleet, it like basically manufactured the entire turmoil that she and Boimler went through on the planet to kind of toughen him up and make him look cool. At the end, he's making fun of her at the bar, and she like shrugs it off and walks off. But then you find out that she basically engineered the whole thing so that he would have, like you said, a little bit of raised status. But God, I hope that doesn't happen every episode, because I thought we got through that on that first episode.
And I don't even know if she engineered the whole thing or just the very last thing. Because that was kind of like, it was hinted at like, hey, you're an idiot and I know everything. And which is fine if those are your characters. Hey, I know everything and you're an idiot. But how does your knowing everything gonna help us get through this is I think more important. But show me, don't tell me, you know.
It just felt like this was so much like an extra plot that could have been in the pilot. Like it felt so weird, almost as if this could have been in place of the zombie plot from the first episode.
Yeah.
Somehow, like I it felt redundant to have that planet-based stuff going on, but at the same time, like you said, I loved that B story where the Ensign Rutherford, who is part cyborg, they haven't said why, but he has like a chunk of his skull missing and replaced with this robotic thing. He looks like he looks like the reverse of Cyborg from DC's Teen Titans.
Yeah.
He just has a little portion of his head and not most of his head as a cyborg, and he excels at everything. And it's just like, no, I feel like I want to be an engineer. And there's an undercut gag throughout it where every time he tells his superior, I think I want to transfer out, like they get really angry and then go, you know what? I'm happy for you. And I thought that was kind of cute. Like that was funny.
That reminded me of Starfleet.
Star Trek.
That reminded me of Starfleet and they were he wasn't great at everything. They put him on and he wasn't good. So the Ace story is kind of a comedy of errors, where it's like, oh, we got to do this one simple mission, and then everything messes up. And because they were drinking and they were hauling around a diplomat who's nuts, and then it turns into what should have been a road movie with our two characters, where we get to see pros and cons of both of them, and then how they work. That's all road stories. All we're trapped on this road. Everything from planes, trains, and automobiles to anything else. If you look at planes, trains, and automobiles, Dale Griffith did get them money when they had none. The fool can be resourceful. You got to show that the fool's resourceful. If at the end of planes, trains, and automobiles, you see Steve Martin talking to the girls that gave them money, thanks, Dale sucks. And I'm so glad you were here to fake it, that we could fake it and have you buy the showering curtains as earrings, because he can't do anything. And it's like, okay. So you guys don't know how to write through. And I had a problem kind of with the opening sort of stinger, because it was too Rick and Morty, the gaseous space thing that can turn matter into other objects. And then
the opening though is what reminded me of you when you were just complaining right now of the whole sociopathic thing. Mariner says in the beginning, when we're done with our job, let's go to the bar and see if we can get a lieutenant to argue with us. And Tendi goes, why? And she goes, 'cause. And that just seems so you, where it's like, I'm going to go online and say something inflammatory. Why? Why not?
So the bad stuff for me, I did not like the opening. I did not like the storyline to plot A. I'm finding 2 of our 4 characters unbearable to watch. Like, that's where I'm getting to. Yeah, where I'm like, God, something needs to happen. Like, one of you needs to have even a little arc, even a little something. and I'll start to give you some credit.
And I'm wondering if if next week's episode is the same way, I'm gonna probably be really bummed at how this show is turning out.
We got to make it to 8. We got to make it. Everybody says episode 8. It was. I realized why I did this show. It's like
Have they
that's
been
everybody.
saying that for this?
They said it at like the Comic-Con panel. Like the voice actors and stuff and the animators, everybody involved was like, "Oh, it's such a great show. It's so hilarious and it's so wonderful." I don't know what we saw. And everybody kept saying episode 8. Let me tell you, that's when shit gets real. So maybe I'm willing to give it 8 weeks. I'll give it. I gave Picard like I 8 or 9 or 10 weeks or 12, whatever it was, and that was brutal.
I think there was a moment where it was when the shuttlecraft crashed and the Klingon was drunk on the ground that I made a note to say to you, still like it better than Picard.
Oh,
and
all right.
It knows what it is. It's just not getting there in the right way, I don't think. Picard, I felt like, was just mismatched and could have been so many different things, but at least they're sticking with what they know. They just, and again, this is just 2 episodes in, it feels way too formulaic. And I will say, not to discredit Mike McMahon and the writing staff, the conflict between Mariner and Boimler this week felt very much like Rick and Morty, where it was like, why'd you let that alien do that? Well, aliens have to do that. That's just how you have to do it. And it just, seeing that once they landed on the planet, I was like, okay, this is very clearly, this is what they're writing for, and maybe they're just not out of the groove and realizing that it's not going to fly on this for fans like us.
And it felt
really weird.
It's also tricky with Rick and Morty. You have somebody who is in high school and doesn't know anything, and the other person is the smartest human in the universe who has created technology that every alien race wants to have and can't get because he's the only one to create it. So it's like, wow, that is literally comically high status and low status. My biggest goal in life is the redhead girl in my class must notice me. And then the other one is I may destroy the universe if I get pushed. And so it's and Rick and Morty establishes that in the first episode. In the first episode, he's going to blow up the earth and he's too drunk to do it. And like, that's the first like 5 minutes of the episode. And it was like, oh my God, that's really, you've painted very well what we're watching. And then he makes Morty shoot and kill people because they're bugs. He does all these really rough things it's a rough. Rick and Morty took me a while to get into.
It took me until the end of the first season for me to be like, okay, now I see where you're going with this, and now it's one of my favorite shows.
Same.
But those first few episodes, the way it was sold to me was that it was like an adult comedy riff on Back to the Future. So maybe I went in thinking it was a different, because I mean, obviously the parallels are there.
Yeah.
But then it was so not that and rough at the beginning that it took me a while. But I mean, I love it now. The episode. Have you caught up all with this last season?
Yeah. Season 4's all right.
The vat of acid.
Yeah, that was good.
Man. The vat of acid episode was one of the funniest things all the way through for me.
The vat of acid was good. The train one was really smart. I really like that one, especially if you follow Dan Harmon and his writing stuff. They're just making fun of Dan Harmon. They're making fun of the fans, and they're making fun of their show. And I was just this.
We should have just done Intergalactic Cable.
Yeah. Literally, the train goes off the tracks at the end. You know, it's like just making fun of it. And it's always nice when Veggie Tales gets a shout out real quick for no reason.
So I will say with this episode, the conflict that I had is something that you worried about when we talked about the show originally, where Boimler, Starfleet people in general, I think there's a weird conflict with how they have these two set up. They have him be the book smart person and she's the street smart person, but you cannot be street smart in Starfleet without being book smart. Like those are not mutually exclusive. So that was what was weird to me. And as stupid as this sounds, when she said it's a Bolian about the Ferengi, I was like, that completely in my mind is like, how stupid can a character be to mistake a Bolian and a Ferengi? And then that like is revealed at the end where it was her like setting that up. But it's one of those things where I don't think a character like that would be at her status as you've been putting it, because you have to be smart as well. Captain Kirk wasn't a dummy. Well, let's not do the bad robot movies. No. William Shatner's Captain Kirk was not a dummy. He was very smart, and through the rigors of the job was also street smart.
Yep.
Spock was very book smart and learned to be street smart, but these two are at such extremes that I don't ever see them becoming that kind of dynamic. So that's kind of a weird undercutting that I'm sure they're gonna pass through it, but right now it again, that's why I say I don't think this is for people that have these benchmarks that you and I have, that we're like, well, comparing it to Captain Kirk and Captain Spock from the original series and the movies, like people are like, haha, this is funny and it has a Star Trek framing. So maybe it's succeeding in that respect.
I like this show better than Picard. I don't necessarily like this show, but there are like every now and again, there's something. And I liked this episode more than I liked the first episode. And but that was all because of the B plot. That was with Gene Roddenberry's vision of having them not have conflict. The running gag of, you mean you want out of my department? And then it's like, all right, you're awesome, go right ahead. Yeah. And I was just like,
it takes moxie.
It's exactly not just that, but it's not just Star Trek, but it also is he's an ensign, he's a first year. His insecurities about how people are going to think about him is our insecurities if we were in Star Trek. So he's very easy to relate to. And he is like, I'm gonna go be I guess I'll be a commander. And then they put him in a simulation, and it was kind of cheap jokes. They literally have him but I did laugh when it was like they have him in the simulation.
Joke was funny.
The first one was a bit much, but it was like, yeah, man, you got to make split-second decisions, and what you choose could be life or death if you're going to, be one of the commanding officers. And then the second one was a very small rock is headed towards us. What should we do? All you have to do is go left or go right, and you'll be fine. And he can't make a decision.
The flash cut of them being fine and then immediately all bloodied like they were in the first simulation made me laugh pretty hard.
Yeah.
And the idea that the kindergartner classroom has vented out and all the kids are dead.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do this. Now the preschool has vented out. And for those of you that haven't seen the episode, the first officer in a very cheerful way says, that has never happened in a simulation like this before. Let's do it again on a ship with more kids. And that to me was like, all right, it was funny. And I worry that that's how much this is going to be, is me being like, I laughed and it was fine.
That's okay. It's a comedy show. It's supposed to be a Star Trek show, and it's supposed to be, so that's all right. You can laugh at a comedy show. I will allow it. Him being a doctor and not being able to cut it and getting kicked out. Him going to be security and being amazing at it. And I love that. Then they bring him back to security, and it's very the dumbest joke was probably my favorite, was him looking over and seeing one of the crawl spaces. Oh man, what are they called?
The Jeffries tubes.
Yeah, the Jeffries tubes. He looks over and it's like sparkling, and that's his home. That's where he really belongs. And
happy birthday. It was Matt Jeffries. He would have been 95, I think they said today. The guy that designed the original Enterprise and like has his imagery basically be the foundation of this 50+ year franchise, and it's all just based on that original Enterprise model they did, which is basically what was on the TV show. So happy birthday, dead man.
Yeah.
But I like I said, I didn't hate it, but the thing that I liked, there were a couple things that stood out to me. I liked that it seems like they have their own little workspace. It's a hangar with a shuttlecraft with its warp nacelles taken off, and a little work area that they work at, and I hope that that's like their little space, that's their like ready room or something.
Yeah,
That's
their
their little
bridge. Yeah.
operations. I liked that. And there was another line in sickbay this week that made me laugh. Last week the line was when he got hurt, she says, "What are you worried about? Doctor, I'll just shine a light on it, make it better." It was just such a simplistic way of looking at Star Trek medicine that it made me laugh. And then when the engineer was good with anatomy, but he was bad at bedside manner, the doctor says, "You're good rummaging around on people's insides, but you got a lot to learn about being nice." And it's just lines like that where they worked out. So I mean, like I said, there's still stuff that I like, and there was still Star Trek stuff that I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, still gonna keep watching it. I'm not gonna stop. It's something I paid for already. So
Same. Let's go back to our horrible rating system, Mike.
Yeah.
How many Tarmox out of Jalads would you give Star Trek Lower Decks Episode 2?
I would say this is a solid 2.5 Darmoks out of 5 Jalads. This is, to me, Odo when he found the baby changeling.
Ooh, nice.
It's an okay episode. Not great.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's. I'm going to give this one 2 Darmoks out of 5 Jalads, and I'm gonna say
so insane.
Yeah, we're gone. It's okay though. We're all right. We're still part of society, right? Like we're not like so we got that going for us.
This isn't our identity. We don't say this shit in public unless we're around like-minded people. Like at least we have that self-awareness.
And I'll say that this is Riker's style of sitting, where there's something there, but I don't know why it's happening. So like that's how I'll feel about this episode, where it's like, man, I really like that B plot and I hated the A plot. And I think there's something there. Why does Riker have to do that to sit down? Like, is it an insecurity thing? Is it a dominance thing? Is it nope, it's nothing. That's just how I was taught how to sit, fucko. It could be.
Gotta get that big old dick over that chair.
That episode.
Riker's big old dick or
So I give it 2. Riker's big old dicks. Now I need to make a whole new rating board. So
why was our rating system not there are 5 lights?
That's so much better. How many lights are there out of 5 lights? Oh my god, we'll do that from now on. We'll do the lights.
No, we got to stick with the Darmoks out of Jalads. We'll find some other reason for that. Maybe we'll shift over to that for the Discovery episodes if we haven't driven each other crazy by then.
Yeah.
So, if you want to get a hold of us, you can find us on Twitter. My address is @Mike_blacklist. You are at Packaday.
Yeah, right. Packaday, and then the website of my website is packadayproductions.com.
So if you liked anything that we said, chat us up there, and we'll probably talk about it on the air next week. And if not, we'll try to go live next week or something, because I think that we'd actually have some fun with people on this. But next week's episode, I don't believe it has a title yet, but we will see you next Thursday or Friday. So for Damage Reports, I am Michael, that is James, and we will see you next week.
All right. Goodbye, baby!
Baby! Terrifying episode. If you break this episode down, it is the most psychologically terrifying episode of any TV show you can imagine.
If your mind is a place and something only exists in your mind, it still exists somewhere. And there's
that's fine to me. I think the emotional toll, for those of you who don't know this episode, the episode starts with Picard getting hit by a probe that they've just encountered and wakes up immediately on this planet, and he's like, the fuck's going on here? And he's like, hey, Enterprise, get me out of here. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, you're my husband. And every act break is another 10 years that he's been on this planet, where he finally just begrudgingly accepts, I'm Galen of this culture, and 15 years into it, I'm just going to stop trying to get back to the Enterprise. This is my life now. Something happened. And then at the end of the episode, he's an ancient man. He's lived an entire lifetime there.
Had
And then
kids, had grandkids,
had kids,
had kids, had
played by
grandkids.
Patrick Stewart's actual son.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when he's about to die, his friend from his younger years shows up and he's like, "Hey, I'm not dead." And actually, Picard's like, "Aren't you dead?" He's like, "We're all dead because this entire culture is dead, and we programmed a living memory of us to zap someone someday and download our entire culture into them so that our culture won't die." Those kinds of stories I have a major beef with, because it's like I love the idea of Picard being like, I was able to experience this life with kids that I'm never going to have and a family, and plus I get to come back to this life.
The concept or philosophy that everybody dies twice. You die when you die, and you die when the last person who knew you dies or remembers you. This was broken down for kids and fun in Coco, which I still liked. Like I watched Coco and I was like, if I was a kid, I'd be like, what a fun movie. And then if I was to rewatch it at 30, I'd be like, what the fuck, guys?
I hate to bring this down, and I apologize to everybody. Try watching Coco 6 months after your grandma dies while your mother is still dying of cancer.
I'm never going to watch a movie again. The show Community, another show I hated, Abed's Claymation Christmas, has one of the sweetest like moments the last moment of the episode, the Claymation TV, we see the actual cast reflection in it.
I don't think that Community is going to be anywhere near the same level as Star Trek Lower Decks. Not to discount it, but I that was my trepidation going into tonight's recording, where I was like, this was a very slight episode, and I'm worried about it just being like, we liked it. What else did you read on the internet this week? There's been an interesting thing that's happened this week with a very prominent movie chain being taken down by all these ex-employees who are saying this theater chain betrayed us and is doing wrong, and there was sexual harassment, and there was this being hidden by HR, and this person was ineffective. And it made me so sad, because it's like, I think you saw me say this online, where I was like, corporations don't care about you. And you may think that, like, I love Disney and Disney's the best. Disney will walk over your corpse in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I think it's sad when people are like, I was so betrayed by this workplace because I felt like I was a good employee, but these people got more hours. And it's like, that is every job everywhere. Yeah. I will always show them a Kids in the Hall sketch where it's a black and white, very arty sketch where Bruce McCullough realizes he doesn't have his pen. Knowing the CBS All Access history, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, this is a Mirror Universe captain and crew like doing something, and at the end the ensigns have to stand up.
And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Star Trek. The Kelvin universe, the 2009 film, really changed how we look at transporting. But the teleporting in that movie like gave me a nervous tick, because I was like, you have just proven that there's no need for starships. You can you can teleport from planet to planet, light years away
to a ship at warp that's been at warp for like at least an hour.
Yeah. Since we're talking about Star Trek in the 21st century.
Thank God.
Thank God, because it is a rich topic, folks. Since 2009 and to now, we've had, I think, 3 or 4 TV shows and 3 movies. Out of all of those things, what has been your favorite thing out of
Star Trek Beyond?
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Yes.
Alex Kurtzman. It's the one it didn't work on.
I will say there is one thing that I dislike about Beyond, that even though I will say it is my favorite of the last 11 years, it would be one of my favorite of all of Star Trek. It's in my top 5, I guess, if I would have to rank things like this. Bad guy gets up, looks up, sees this pane of glass. I thought, perfect. It's going to be the old Star Trek thing where this guy who is evil, he's Starfleet, but he's evil now, sees his reflection and he goes up and he sacrifices himself and saves Kirk. And it's the villain who stops his own plan because he saw himself and realized what he did, but instead grabs the glass and tries to stab Kirk again. And then Kirk kicks him and then he dies. And it's like, All right.
Khan has a great motivation, but they literally wound him and run away, and he chases them with a bomb. It's like,
Yeah.
no, fucko. So, but I don't think every story needs to be that. I always
No.
get upset when I watch like a Miyazaki film, and I instantly just hate American films because there's always a villain in a Miyazaki film, and then the villain fails, and the hero helps the villain out to be a better person, be it a witch or whatever, or monster that it is. And I'm just like, man, American kids are so drilled into their head that you must get your comeuppance, you must be beaten down and tortured for your evil doings.